do those levels look like? What are the structures of these governments? And then kind of wrapping up, going into what Danielle is going to be talking about of like how scientists can get involved in forms of engagement. So just so that we're all on the same page in terms of the definition, what is civic science? When we talk about civic science, it is the connections and relationships between scientific research and public engagement, right? So it's what we do with policy and law and legislation, but then making sure that science-backed research and science-backed data supports that, and that we can understand the research that we're doing and the information that we're disseminating. And so it's that overlap between kind of the technical side and then the public social side of things. I think oftentimes we think about social sectors as these like siloed units. So what I mean by that is transportation takes care of transportation. Environmental units take care of environmental units. Financial services take care of financial services. And that's kind of where it ends. And that's not really the case. That's not what we see. That's not reality. And so I'm going to kind of show some examples of that. But first, maybe wanted to just briefly tell you about myself, why I'm talking about this. So I have been around in Morgantown for a couple of years, about 8 years now. I got my undergrad in biology. Initially wanted to go to med school, and then started to realize it was a little bit more about the people and the social side of things that I was interested in. And then that's when I went ahead and went on to get my master's degree in public administration. When I was quickly putting together this slide about 10 minutes before this presentation, I was like, okay, what are some quick things that I think might help set the scene? And so I'm a Morgantown resident. I've officially been a resident for about 2 years now. And so I try to be actively engaged and involved with city happenings and events. I'm a chicken owner. I have 5 chickens. And so a little bit of a farm / garden here in the corner of Morgantown. And then an AI enthusiast, right? AI, artificial intelligence, is coming. It is a developing technology. It is something that I think we will continue to use and continue to develop. And so just thinking of how all of this ties together. Going back to those issues, and how there's kind of this overlap, right? I refer to a lot of the times these community capitals that were initially kind of set up and defined by Flora and Gasteyer, that define, if we can have these 7 things in a community, then we have this healthy, vibrant, thriving community. The folks will live happy lives. They'll have good livelihoods, good connections. And so these capitals, built financial, political, social, human, cultural, and natural, all kind of tie in together to build up these communities. And so with STEM, a lot of times we see this in the natural and human and maybe social and built side of things. But each of these sectors has areas to get involved. They each have research. They each have studies and data that is associated that backs up why we do what we do and how we go about making policies and laws and decisions that ultimately impact these communities that we live in. You all know these people probably, but it ties into the next couple of slides. So starting at kind of just the national levels of who are our civic leaders and what does this structure look like. So for West Virginia, we have our president and vice president nationally, and then Senators Manchin and Senator Capito, as well as our House of Representatives, Congressman Alex Mooney and Congresswoman Carol Miller. From there in the state, we have our governor, Joan Justice, and then we have our West Virginia legislature, which is composed of 34 senators and 100 House of Delegate members. West Virginia's legislature works a little differently compared to other states. A lot of times we see a full-time legislature where they, kind of year-round will be passing policies and bills, and we'll take breaks here and there. But for the state of West Virginia, we have a 60-day legislature beginning kind of there towards the end of January and wrapping up this week, actually. And so that 60 days is kind of a go hard or go home moment for our legislature. And here in Mon County, we have 6 senators, and then 6 delegate members. And so that's here. I just listed those out, and then I'm going to send this PowerPoint after my presentation out to everybody, just for like contacts and resources and some of the stuff that I'm covering. If we look deeper, so in Mon County, we have a 3-member county commission that each member serves a 6-year term and then oversees kind of the big picture of county happenings. So this is construction, maintenance, administrative functions, and budgeting. Our current county commissioners are Tom Bloom, Sean Sikora, and Jeffrey Arnett. But then we also have other positions that handle some of the more specific administrative duties, such as assessor, our clerks, our sheriff, and then prosecuting attorney. Within the city, we have a city council manager form of government. And so different municipalities work under various forms of government. But for Morgantown, we have a 7 city councilor and 1 city manager relationship there. And while the counselors and council kind of handles the bigger picture issues and some of the more policy and lawmaking, the city manager and their staff focuses more on the day-to-day administrative functions. So it's not necessarily our city councilors that are running the city, but they're in charge of making sure the city runs, and then the city manager would then come in and do kind of the hands-on day-to-day. The city meets bi-weekly on Tuesdays for regular meetings, and then they have various special sessions and special meetings in between that. I'm sure that Danielle maybe has some examples of what that is. These are our city councilors and manager. Each councilor represents 1 ward in the city, and so that's what that map is there on the left. And these councilors are elected for 4-year terms, and the city manager is an appointed position. From there, we have a ton of commissions and boards that folks can get involved in. And this is kind of where we really see more of an opportunity to engage and be involved as scientists. So each of these commissions and boards are volunteer nominated positions where citizens and residents of the community can go out and say, hey, I'm going to be on this board or this commission, and use my experience with my job or with my education or with my personal life to promote this. I highlighted the Health and Wellness Commission there because that is one of the commissions that I am on. Recently was elected as the chair of the Health and Wellness Commission. And on that, we have a data person that kind of handles the data and technology side. We have a nurse. We have someone who works with WVU Medicine Administration, with me that works with the Center and or Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And so having kind of multiple points of view and multiple backgrounds coming in and focusing on an issue is really where we're seeing the change happen and where folks can get involved the most. At WVU, we also have lots of ways to get involved. So I know not everybody on here is maybe faculty or staff, but there are still various ways of getting involved with our service learning courses, which are offered through the Center for Community Engagement. And these courses connect students with community organizations, nonprofits, government agencies to promote the work of that agency. And so a lot of times what we see, a couple examples of students going in and working with an organization for a semester to promote whatever that may be. So Dr. Jennifer Ripley Stukel, for example, raises and studies trout throughout the semester with her class. The students go in and learn more about the trout and are able to see it and raise it right there in the lab. And then at the end of the semester, once they kind of get through their growing cycle, the class then kind of goes around the state and works with various elementary schools to release these trout into streams. And so she's, not only learning in the classroom, but then applying that with community engagement, community organizations. We also have various courses that work with local trails and parks and environmental areas to promote whatever it is that they do. So we have Falling Run Trail, Mon River Trail, the Core Arboretum, yada, yada, yada. And these are just a couple of examples of where a student would go in and learn more and maybe help promote marketing or promote support or even just promote, manual labor to learn to make the area better. In addition to these service learning courses, WVU Extension also has a hand in all 55 counties throughout the state. So we have at least one faculty member that is placed to teach, perform research around, and serve in areas of youth development, community and family development, and agriculture and natural resources. And so a lot of times we're seeing, programs and initiatives come from this that the university is gaining, right? We're learning more about the communities and the people that we're working with, but the communities are also profiting, not monetarily, but with the experience and outcomes of whatever programming happens there. Here in Morgantown, I'm almost done, and I'm got a few other people. A couple of examples here in Morgantown. We have the Morgantown Citizens Academy, which is an 8-week session for folks of all backgrounds to be able to come in and learn more about the local government and areas to get involved. And so this is really a moment to say, hey, you have a scientific background, you have a finance background, you have a marketing background. How do you fit in the city? What is your role and how can you get more involved? And then similarly with Leadership Monongalia, this program, aims to develop leadership skills, provide knowledge around Mon County and how to be an engaged citizen. A specific example here of one of our delegates. So here in Mon County, we have Delegate Evan Hansen, who has a background in energy and resources and is a co-owner of the nonprofit Downstream Strategies, which works with various agencies to promote and protect drinking water and energy development and economic development. And so while he does this on his own and his education and experiences around this, he also, as a delegate, uses this background and network to be able to advance sustainable energy and other environmental friendly policies in this position. And then just kind of wrapping up with some broad benefits of engaging in civic engagement. And so, from anywhere to expanded data collection and enhanced accuracy and validation to increased public support and understanding and democratization. A lot of times, we're seeing folks don't understand it and therefore they're against it. And doesn't have to be that way, right? We can do a better job as scientists and as communities to say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we're looking at, what we're researching. Or on the flip side of that, hey, this is what we found. This is what the data suggests. This is what we're seeing. And so how can we incorporate this? And really just communicating that and being transparent in that process. And so with that, that is, I think, all that I have. And so I'm going to pass over to Danielle to talk about what she's going to talk about.
Thank you, Mason. That was a very good overview about myself and the city and the way that we operate. I will share my screen here to get started. So again, my name is Danielle Trumbull. I am the 5th Ward City Councilor for the city of Morgantown. I'm in my 3rd year, my 2nd term on City Council. I currently serve as chair of the Board of Parks and Recreation Commissioners. And I'm very excited. I was recently appointed to a National League of Cities Federal Advocacy Committee for Human Development. So I'm looking forward to getting that position started and advocating for the people of West Virginia and Morgantown at a federal level. So today I'm going to discuss how we as a city use science to affect our local policy decisions. Maybe. There we go. Everyone here, I assume, is at least vaguely familiar with the scientific thought process. There's several different versions of this that kind of bounce around, but this is the one that I relate most closely to. We identify the problem, understand constraints or various issues, study what the data says, use that data to impart our solution. And after we come up with a solution and implement, we look at data and test, gather feedback so that we can then improve our process. So the city of Morgantown employs many different types of science background individuals. We have a lot of engineers on staff, traffic engineers, city and civil engineers, I'm sorry, and information technology, computer science folks. We also work closely with structural, computer, architectural, environmental, many different types of engineers in the city. Something unique to the city of Morgantown is our assistant city manager is actually a civil engineer instead of a background in public administration. She does a great job as we're working on projects, going over all of the bids and things that come in. It really helps that she knows what she's looking at. She knows what she's talking about. The city has a GIS analyst on staff also, and we are actually looking to add another GIS employee in the next fiscal year. They help with a lot of mapping, a lot of demographic information. A lot of our projects, the first step is to stop it at the GIS analyst. We have environmental sciences covered. I'll get into a little later some of the ways that we use environmental sciences. Chemistry, the city runs the Morgantown Utility Board and the water treatment plant here. Chemistry plays a big role in that. We have biologists on staff. We have arborists and plant experts, things like that. Medicine, we work closely with the Mon County Health Department. All of our police department and fire department are trained EMS. We are very, very frequently the first responders on scene for any 911 calls. So we do a lot of triage, things like that. Social sciences is kind of an all-encompassing term these days. It covers a lot of ground, but we have, managers, human resources, communication professionals. We have a grant writer, political scientist. We even have a social worker that works through Morgantown Police Department. And in addition to those that we employ, we collaborate with a lot of other groups of varying scientific backgrounds. We work with such as Friends of Deckers Creek, the Mon River Trails Conservancy. We're very closely partnered with WVU and WVU Medicine on many of our initiatives. So I'd like to go into a few examples of how the city uses these different types of sciences in work with concrete examples of that. So last year, the city underwent a rebranding initiative. This on the screen was our old city logo and city seal. And we thought that it was time for a little bit of an update. There were people on staff who thought that this was a bit outdated. So our communications department and our marketing employee reached out to the community at large with surveys. They went to different stakeholder groups and held interviews. They got feedback based on what people thought was unique about our city, what things in our city we really wanted to highlight. We also got feedback on things such as what colors should we use? What kind of emotion do these different colors invoke? Is there something we need to stay away from? So this is the new city logo that we came up with. And the blue is meant to represent the river, the green, the mountains, the sun, because it's always bright here in Morgantown and in West Virginia, right? So that's a way that we used social sciences very recently to influence a city project. Getting into the chemistry side of things, everyone, if you're from West Virginia anyways, I assume you remember about 10 years ago, there was a chemical spill in the Elk River down near Charleston, and people there were without water for a significant amount of time. Their drinking water was contaminated. And we're currently dealing with a situation just south of us in Fairmont where an old brine site is leaking radiation, and they are concerned about that entering our waterways. The main source of drinking water for the city of Morgantown is the Mon River. So luckily, people way before my time who had great foresight, they recognized that this could become an issue for us. Again, the river is our main source of water. We do have a small reservoir in White Park. It only carries about 3 days worth of a water backup for the size that Morgantown is currently. So they bought a piece of property, and actually just in the last several months, the new reservoir has been filled. That will give us a 30-day backup for our water supply. And that comes from a different source. That it is fed by the creek, not the river. It's upstream from the river. So as we are monitoring the water quality that we are taking from the Mon River, if there's determined to be any abnormalities, if there's determined to be any cause for concern, with the push of a button, those at that water treatment plant can simply switch the source of Morgantown's water, and it will start coming directly from the reservoir as opposed to the river. So we know that a lot of brownfields and things in West Virginia have an effect on our water quality. It was great that people thought ahead and planned for that here in our community. An example of environmental science. This is a picture of White Park. This was taken around 1895, I believe. White Park over along Greenbag Road was actually the site of about 80 above ground oil tanks. You can see in the bottom corner of the picture there is a building. So compare that to the size of some of those tanks. They're quite significant. Needless to say, this is a rather large brownfield site, but it was given to the city of Morgantown, and it's been used as a park for decades. And various types of cleanups have happened over the years, starting back in the early 2000s. And we keep getting these short-term, like certificate of use, certificate of remediation. But a couple of years ago, we decided that we wanted to take care of this and get this cleaned up once and for all. So we entered the DEP's voluntary remediation program. They have come in and done a lot of soil testing, figured out where some of those contaminated sites throughout the park are. And we are actually a pilot program. We've been approved, we've received grants. We're a pilot program for the DEP. We are the first to be able to use trail building as a remediation technique. So as we are planning for a new mixed-use trail system in White Park, we are strategically placing those trails so that we can get the final certificate from the DEP saying that the entire park has been remediated and it is safe for use. Not that it's not safe now, again, but it's good to get that certificate and get that moving. I do have a few examples of when policy is influenced by science, but maybe it doesn't always go the way of data. The city of Morgantown's annual paving plan is one example of that. We brought in a consulting firm who drove every mile of city streets. It's somewhere between 100 and 150 miles that the city of Morgantown actually owns and is responsible for. So they gave us back a report saying, here are the streets where you are going to get your best return on investment. These are the ones where you should spend your money. They are not so far gone that it's not worth repairing. This is the best optimization. So we looked at this list and noted that some of these streets didn't necessarily to us seem to be those that were most in need all the time. These are not the ones that are always in the worst shape. We were told that in order to maximize the impact of our dollars, we should really be, maintaining ones that are only starting to fail, not ones that had completely failed. The issue with this data is it doesn't take into account the human condition, right? I can't look at someone who lives on one of those streets and say, your street is too far gone, it's not worth it to us to pave it. So that's an instance where we don't always necessarily go along with what the data is telling us. The ward and boundary adjustments that happen through the city of Morgantown every 2 years are another example of that. We use our GIS coordinator as well as a ward and boundary commission with a member that lives in each of the 7 wards, and the most recent census data, and try to balance the population and the number of registered voters that are living in each of the city's 7 wards. And now that we have, it wasn't always done with GIS. The Ward and Boundary Commission used to throw out some maps on a table and start making line changes here and there. Now that we have GIS, it is actually fairly simple, I say as someone who doesn't have to do it, it's fairly simple to make sure that some of those wards and those numbers are all balanced. But we hear a lot of feedback from people who live in the wards, who live in a neighborhood, who feel a very strong tie to their identity with that ward or that neighborhood, and they don't want their neighborhood split into multiple wards. So as we're looking at the data with that, we also have to take into account how people that live in those areas feel about that. And another example, very briefly, at the end of 2021, the city's traffic engineer came to us asking us to repeal the city's mandatory helmet laws. There's been mixed science on those, mixed data for the last decade or so that, I think everyone knows it's a great idea to wear a helmet when you're riding a bicycle, but there's conflicting information about whether it prevents injuries or makes that much of a difference. However, it has been shown that mandatory helmet laws do reduce the number of people who ride bicycles, and they are also a deterrent to having bicycle rentals in your community. So council went back and forth on this a few times and ended up repealing the mandatory helmet law for anyone age 16 or older. So those are just a few examples of how science affects our policy in a positive way, and how science sometimes doesn't necessarily lead us in the direction of following the science, I should say, sorry. So how to get involved, and Mason already did a good job of discussing this, but very briefly, you can join a local nonprofit or advocacy group. There are groups for any interest, really. Morgantown has a green team that advocates for environmental changes to city council. We even work with the health department and the quick response team on things like addressing overdoses and addiction. So there's plenty of opportunities to get involved if you look around. Again, as Mason went over, there are about 30 City of Morgantown boards and commissions. We have everything from Health and Wellness Commission that Mason is a member of, to the Traffic Commission, the Planning Commission, the Tree Board. If you have an interest about something, there is likely a board or commission that would be appropriate for you. Before my time on City Council, I was actually a member of the Traffic Commission. I represented the 5th Ward. I was on the Health and Wellness Commission, and I was a member of the Bow Park Board. So it's a great way to get your foot in the door and get involved. And then the city of Morgantown has job openings all the time. As I mentioned, we'll be hiring another GIS analyst very soon. We do a lot of summer internships in various parts of the city. And I made these links. I will send those out with the post-meeting information. When Brooke sends that out, I'll make sure that you can get those links. They're all available on the city website under the How Do I Volunteer or How Do I Apply tab. So that is all that I had today. I will be happy to answer any questions after Kevin presents. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Brooke, for the invitation. So I want to talk a little bit about civic science and just from the perspective of my role. And the question I kind of focused on was, how do I create positive impact? So I come from a background of environmental engineering. So what does that mean for me as an environmental engineer? And what does that mean for me as a role as a professor here at the university? And to even answer those questions, we even have to think about, what does positive impact even mean? So one thing that we can look for to kind of give us a path forward about what does positive global impact mean. The United Nations put together these 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So these are things that we can pursue not only at a global level, but here in our local community. So things like no poverty, zero hunger, clean water and sanitation, affordable clean energy. So these are all things that we can look for at a global level and translate to the local level. And also for me as an environmental engineer, some people in my field got together and they took these Sustainable Development Goals. The National Academy of Engineering put together grand challenges for engineering, and they came up with ways for me in my field of environmental engineering, some things to pursue. So it could be addressing carbon and climate, looking at sanitation and hygiene, making sure we have clean drinking water and safe sanitation. But also towards the bottom of the list, there are things like not only looking at the environmental side of things of sustainability, but also kind of getting at what Danielle is talking about, but how do we integrate culture, perception, and behavior, and looking at social sustainability in addition to environmental and economic sustainability. And then one thing that directly relates to me, goal number 10 here, is educating globally competent engineers. So engineers not only who have the technical skills to do their job, but that can they talk with people? Can they understand people's needs? Can they work across cultures? So these are things that motivate some of the work that I do, both as a professor and in engineering. Other things within environmental engineering that I look at is sustainably supplying food, water, and energy, curbing climate change, designing a future without pollution or waste. So these are things that definitely include environmental engineering, but are not specific to environmental engineering. It requires us to work across disciplines. And then one thing that I didn't know initially, but I've learned throughout my work that I'll get into in a minute is positive local impact is defined by talking with people. So, for me, I'm an introvert, and as an engineer, I'm often trained to do technical things, and there's like one right numerical answer. But when you work with communities and try to figure out what are local needs and then trying to address those local needs, it means talking with people, and that takes time, it takes energy, perhaps working outside of our comfort zones, but it's really important to make sure we're defining the right questions and then addressing those questions appropriately. So I just have a few examples in the following slides here about lessons I've learned about trying to define positive impact and how I've tried to create that impact. So I did my undergrad at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and the first way I kind of got involved in civic science and working with communities was through a student organization called Engineers Without Borders. And this was a great opportunity because I learned how to interact with communities, and it was also a community in El Salvador. So that meant learning some new technical material, but also working across cultures and across languages. So these are just a few pictures from that experience. I was a project manager for a team of about 10 students, and we had 2 advisors. You can see in the bottom right photo, we're all piled in the back of a pickup truck. And our work was working with the community to address their needs from gray water. So gray water is anything that comes from your sink, your washing machine, and they had a way where they could use pit toilets for their urine and their feces, but for gray water, it just went into the streets, and then it would just create a breeding ground for different insects. There were some odor issues. So we worked with the local community members to dig a trench and then put in some piping so that gray water could go to an existing construction wetland. And as you can see in the top left photo, this was a real community effort. So even though they may not have had, all the financial resources to buy all the sewer, to buy all the materials, they invested their time and their local knowledge and their masonry skills to complete the project. But one thing that I learned is that I was there for 2 weeks, and I felt that, just 2 weeks in a different country and a different culture wasn't really enough for me to understand the local culture and to make sure I was asking the right question and that we were solving it appropriately. So that led me to join a master's program that integrated 1 year of graduate coursework and 2 years in the Peace Corps. And that 2 years in the Peace Corps was really appealing to me because I had 10 weeks of training. I lived with the host family, and then I had 2 years to spend with the community instead of just 2 weeks. So in my Peace Corps service, many of you might be familiar with the Panama Canal, which goes through the central part of the country. I was in the western part of the country in an indigenous community. And, we have gathering spaces inside, perhaps at, a local church or a local city building. A lot of their community meetings happened outside. So here we are just having a community meeting and talking about different ways to sustainably maintain different drinking water and sanitation infrastructure. These were my latrines on the left and on the right. There were just 2 different types of latrines that I used for sanitation. That's inside of the latrine there. And during my Peace Corps service, I also wrote a master's thesis. So one stated need from the community was that even though they had water from a spring, they had no way to disinfect their water. So after being there for a while, they brought about this need, and we were able to construct and then analyze this local PVC chlorinator that you could buy with tools from the local hardware store. And then I was testing how many chlorine tablets you would need to maintain proper chlorine residual throughout the community. So this was in collaboration with the drinking water committee from the community, and they helped me install this chlorinator and then do some of the analysis throughout the community. So it's just a picture of what that chlorinator looks like with the black chlorine tablet in the middle there. So a lesson I learned there was take time to listen. As an engineer, I just like doing things and having like physical things to show as a result of my work. But we were encouraged just to listen and meet the community during our first 3 to 6 months in our community. And that was really important. And in this particular community, they don't have a paid position to maintain their water. This water committee president, like he had a day job. Maintaining the water system was just a volunteer role for him, and he just had a 6th grade education. So taking time to listen, but also realizing that, we often ask a lot of people, especially in rural communities who have lots of other responsibilities, but also have this great responsibility of maintaining clean drinking water for a community. One thing a little more local here in West Virginia is I'm a part of the Appalachian Community Technical Assistance and Training Program. So just like in Panama, there's a lot of rural water systems. The same can be said here in West Virginia. And a lot of these systems, it might be one workers who's responsible for maintaining a large number of systems. So I'm a part of a team both here at West Virginia University, but also in Kentucky, in Tennessee, and Virginia that provides regional workshops, individual team training, and also technical assistance with an emphasis in these rural systems. So a couple lessons that I've learned in about the 3 years that I've worked with this program is that even here in our state, there are many people that lack access to clean drinking water and safe sanitation. We still have like straight piping systems where it could be straight from your toilet just into the yard or into a river somewhere, and that we really have an issue of a water workforce. in our water infrastructure. They're both aging and underpaid. There's a lot of people who don't go into this industry of working at a drinking water treatment plant or a wastewater treatment plant because they could get a better wage elsewhere. So why would they have a wage that doesn't pay them adequately? So one thing that we're trying to do about it is recently Dr. Emily Garner is a PI for a new grant from the Department of Labor that's looking at offering paid summer internship opportunities for high school and community or technical college students, where different utilities can hire interns for the summer for a 10-week period. The money is provided by the Department of Labor, so anyone who is interested can get paid and work with these utilities. So the utilities get labor, and this provides an onboarding experience for more people to replace a lot of the current drinking water treatment plant operators who may be in their 50s or 60s and are ready to retire. Another thing that's been mentioned already is the Bridge Initiative. So for me as an engineer in particular, without good policy, I could develop this amazing engineering technology in the lab, but if there's not appropriate policy to support its implementation, it may never happen. And there's a lot of students who come to me saying, oh, I want to, make a difference. I want to make a local impact, yet are untrained in policy. So I'm really working towards educating myself and then educating my students so they have some of these tools to make sure that these great technical things they're learning, that they can translate it into practice. There's also quite a few people here from the Center for Community Engagement. I'm part of the Engaged Scholars Institute. So there's a lot of us here at WVU faculty who want to do this community engaged work. So this is just a great way for all of us to come together and receive guidance and support and resources from the staff from this center. But for me also to engage with other faculty who are doing this work so we can learn from each other and work together to address some of these really important issues within our state. So I'll just briefly mention a couple of things I'm trying to do now to create positive impact. One thing I'm doing is that this semester, and I've taught it one semester previously, is teaching a sustainable development engineering course. So I'm teaching students about sustainable development goals, stakeholder engagement, policy, public health, bringing in people to provide guest lectures of what people are doing in practice so people know what's being done in communities and kind of give them a vision for if they want to do this work in the future, what they can do, and then also having hands-on activities. So one thing that's coming up this Friday is we're having a hand pump competition where the students buy materials and build their own hand pump and try to pump 5 gallons of water faster than the other student groups. I'm having them build a rocket stove so that they can boil water just using materials from a hardware store later in the semester. And Danielle mentioned the Flegel Dam and Reservoir. So the photo in the bottom right was when I brought students to the dam and reservoir when it was under construction in fall 22. And I'll be bringing my students again March 27th to see the reservoir as it's completed. Another thing that I have them do is in different parts around the WVU Evansdale campus, looking at stormwater infrastructure. A couple of years ago, we had really intense rain events, and a lot of our stormwater infrastructure is undersized. So the students would go observe how the infrastructure is working, and then work with Brian Lemmy, who's here on campus, who's managing our stormwater infrastructure, figure out ways that they could address any problems that they saw, and then actually have a chance to implement their solutions at the end of the semester. One other thing that I'll mention is that I'm bringing 6 students to Costa Rica this summer. And what we're doing is we're going to Monteverde, Costa Rica, which is an ecotourism community in the mountains of Costa Rica. And that it's going to be this cross training between environmental engineers and anthropologists. So the anthropologists will receive environmental engineering, water quality training, and the engineering students are going to learn how to do surveys and focus groups and really get at this social element of sustainability. And then my medium-term vision is that I'd like to develop a pathway for graduate students to do 1-year graduate coursework, not only in engineering, but also in public health, policy, and anthropology, and then work with the Center for Community Engagement and AmeriCorps so that they can do 1 year of stateside service. So there's obviously a lot of work to be done internationally, but there's also a lot of work that we can be doing within our state. So I'll lastly just leave you with a story. So as an undergrad, I initially got involved in this line of work because there was a faculty advisor for Engineers Without Borders who told me that, as an engineer, you can be an engineer just to make a good salary and take care of your family. But also as an engineer, if you come from, a background where you want to make a difference in society, if you want to address needs locally and globally, not only is it something that's like an option to do, but he used this word of oughtness, where we have this ethical responsibility to take care of needs within our state. So some of you may be students and you're just looking for a way to kind of get on board with this, or maybe you're in a position of influence, whether it's with the city council or as a faculty member or a staff member here at the university. I encourage you to use the position that you're at to do the best for our city and for our state and for our country, that there are a lot of work that needs to be addressed, and we all have a way that we can use our skills and experience and positions to help address those needs. So I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Mason, Danielle, and Kevin. Those were all great presentations. I learned a lot from all of you. Kevin, really inspiring to see how you as a scientist, engineer, are working to improve our state. We have 8 minutes left. If anyone has questions, I know a lot of the people here are interested in making a difference, and that's why you're here. If anyone has questions, you can feel free to drop them in the chat or unmute and ask now. And yes, I will send around a recorded video of the webinar to all participants.
I have a quick question, and I gotta apologize in advance. I've class in a few minutes, so I'm gonna have to jet out in a moment. But I love the idea of these, taking students abroad and getting involved in the community. And I guess my big question is, how does one find funding to support students or to support yourself if you're teaching over the summer? Something I'd like to do, and would probably just do by myself if I could, but I'd love to incorporate students and somehow find funding to do these things.
I guess I could start with that. So one way that I've found funding is the National Science Foundation. So this program in Costa Rica, it's funded by the National Science Foundation. It's called IRE, so International Research Experience for Students. So I was able to get that grant and then bring students down. So there'll be 6 students per summer for 3 summers. Another thing that I've done is integrating international components to my proposal. So I recently wrote and then received an NSF Career Award, and one part of that award has an international component in Costa Rica. So if you have really strong science and perhaps like a national component that you can convince NSF that it is benefiting the US, trying to add some information about how you can benefit your students and your research, it can be strengthened by having an international component. And I was able to do that for my career award as well.
Thank you.
And I know, just to comment on that, I think it's something that as we start this local science engagement network, some things that have come up is how to kind of work together, not necessarily reinvent the wheel, but kind of there's a lot of people already doing civic science in West Virginia. And so how do we get involved how do we connect people with them and elevate what they're already doing? And so not really an answer, Kevin, but hopefully as this network grows and becomes more connected, people can link together and maybe share resources, share ideas, share knowledge to make our impact greater as a collective. And Mason also put something in the chat. I don't know, Mason, if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, the center occasionally browses for grants and will provide those grants through their newsletter and website, but it may also be able to help find something more specific depending on what you're looking for. So I just dropped a link to our opportunities page, which kind of lists currently some grants that we're keeping an eye on and might be worth looking at.
Are there other questions? So I have a question. If no one else, oh, Robin, go ahead.
Oh, you can go ahead and ask your question, Brooke. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, go ahead, Robin.
So I have a question for Mason and Danielle. So Mason, since last we spoke, I was looking into the commissions of volunteer opportunities and trying to find what board I lived in, but turns out that the street that I live on is, I guess, privately owned. And so I'm not able to volunteer. How else could I get involved in sort of city aspects? Because I also can't vote in city council elections because of that.
Most of our boards and commissions will take volunteers. Actually, if there's a commission that you're especially interested in, go to the meetings. They will still listen to you and allow you to help out. And not all commissions require city residency. Some say live or work in the city. Some are just open to a person with a certain area of expertise. So different boards and commissions are different. Look into those. And again, like volunteering with some of those local organizations that we partner with frequently is also a great way.
Thank you.
I have a similar question, I guess, for Danielle and Mason. So Mason, you said that there are these bi-weekly meetings, that the city council meets bi-weekly, but I'm wondering what kind of, and I know Danielle just said that all these commissions and boards are usually open to volunteers attending and participating. I'm curious, for someone that maybe can't necessarily commit to serving on a board or commission or doing an internship or something that takes a bit more of a commitment, are there like regular meetings that the public is invited to? Or, and also, so that's, I guess, the first question. And second part is, what's a good way to kind of follow the topics that are being discussed locally, upcoming policy proposals and things, so that as something comes up that maybe someone has expertise in, they can maybe lend some expertise, or maybe they're passionate about a certain topic that arises?
So to answer that question, there is a place on the city's website that's called Notify Me. And you can go in there and tell the city what kind of notifications you would like to get via text or email. You can get notifications when boards and commissions have agendas, or if the city puts out a press release, you can choose to get notified about each one of those. So there's a long list of boxes you can click or unclick. And yes, city council meets the first and third Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. Right now, we are in the county commission courthouse chambers, but we expect that in April, we will be moving back into City Hall. All meetings of city council and all meetings of boards and commissions are open to the public. On the city website, there is also a calendar of events. Usually there's a specific day of the month that these different boards and commissions meet, but you can go in and check any specific day for meetings that are happening to go on that day. I know city council meetings, if there's something you want to bring to our attention that you think we're not paying any attention to, or if there's something you want to speak about, every meeting has a public portion. You are welcome to stand up and speak for 4 minutes or so about any topic you wish to bring up.
Thank you.
I will also add, if you are WVU affiliated, there's the iServe platform, which is kind of just a standard volunteer platform to find different opportunities and needs in the community. And then if you are not WVU affiliated, there's a United Way link as well. Sorry, I'm trying to post and talk at the same time. There's a public one as well. And so if you're looking for maybe just a way to dip your toes into something, or go to one event to see what it's like, this might be a good way to do that.
Great, thank you so much. We are at time. I want to say thank you again to our 3 speakers that shared great insights. And I want to encourage everyone here to maybe sign up for the West Virginia Local Science Engagement Network listserv that can be found on our website. And I will send out all these links and resources as a follow-up to everyone. And I also want to bring everyone's attention to another upcoming opportunity related to civic science, but actually in science communication. So we're having a science communication workshop that is based in the Appalachian tradition of storytelling. It's a 2-part workshop followed by an event at the Morgantown Brewing Company where scientists will be sharing their stories to the public. We'll have some appetizers there available to everyone that's there. Probably should add that to the flyer, but please save the date for those, register if you're interested, spread the word. And thank you all so much for attending. I hope we all stay in touch. Bye.